Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to introduce our keynote speaker to all of you. It's my great honor and immense pleasure to introduce and welcome Professor I.M. Pandey to our 6th International Conference on Contemporary Management, organized by the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Jaffna. I feel elated to introduce our keynote speaker to everyone. He is a living inspiration to the young academics. If one takes a closer look at the alchemy of the achieving person, two distinct virtues pop up. Besides perseverance and hard work, these are pioneering spirit and willingness. Our professor is the living idiom of a professor, author, and mentor. Professor I.M. Pandey received his master's degree and PhD in finance from the University of Delhi, India. He was a professor in Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, from more than 25 years, where he also served as an acting director, dean, chairman of the doctoral program, and chairman of finance and accounting area. He also served as an Indian Institute of Management as a professor of research during 2013 and 14. He also held the position of dean and chair professor, School of Management, and vice president for academic affairs, Asian Institute of Management, Technology, Thailand. Before joining AIT in the beginning of 2012, he served as a dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Business, Delhi University, as well as a senior professor at the Department of Financial Studies, the Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University. Professor who has 40 years of university teaching experience, a dynamic and dedicated man of letters, has taught at Kansas State University, USA, University of Science, Malaysia, University of Birmingham, UK, Essex, France, and many other universities. His areas of research include strategic corporate finance, corporate governance, virtual venture capital, and emerging capital markets. Widely acknowledged as one of the eminent professors of finance, Professor published many books, and his research articles were published in all the leading finance journals. Those who are in the field of finance have been amazed by his ability to make even the most complex concept understandable. One indicator of the range and breadth of the professor's knowledge and expertise is the fact that his best-selling book, Financial Management, has helped millions of people worldwide to improve their knowledge in financial management. The author of our primary textbook in finance for degree programs for many years. The living legend we have among us today, the man of the knowledge and wisdom, is our keynote speaker. It's really proudest moment for all of us. Coupled with an impressive academic background, it's not therefore surprising that he has been member of the board of directors of many companies and editorial boards of several well-recognized international journals, including Global Business and Finance Review, Afro-Asia Journal of Finance and Accounting, Journal of Accounting and Finance, International Journal of Accounting, Audit and Performance. So it's so impossible to mention his every single accomplishment because they are a lot. It's such an honor for us to have you, Professor, today between us. So on behalf of the University of Jaffna, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, I thank you for accepting our invitation, for bestowing with us with your presence virtually. Thank you so much, Professor.
Namaskar. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. It was a great dance performance by Gayatri. I got quite impressed. I thought it was Bharatanatyam. Very well done. Congratulations to Gayatri. There were a lot of excellent professors. I learned a lot from the pearls of wisdom which they gave to all of us. Thanks to them. I thank you, the organizers of the conference, for inviting me. I would like to make special mention of Navneet Krishnan for writing the letter of invitation to me. Thank you very much. I understand that this conference theme is sustainable development. Well, I'm a student of sustainable development, not an expert. So I don't know whether I can really talk on this or not. Therefore, I chose a topic which I know a little bit, where we have done some research, and I would like to share that particular topic with you. I have prepared a small presentation so that things become very clear to you when I talk. So I would put that here. Let me share it if I can. Okay. Are you able to see this? Are you able to see?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So what I'm going to talk about is financial literacy. And I would mention that how does it lead to sustainable development? But main focus is going to be on financial literacy. Now, the question which we may ask is, why should we study financial literacy? How is it important? How is it related to sustainable development? And what kind of research have we done? So when I move further, now, why this focus on financial literacy? Now you would notice that in a number of emerging economies, reforms took place, the economic reforms took place. The financial markets were deregulated. In India, I think we started economic reforms and financial reforms in 1991. After that, it picked up. We had made some headway in 1980, 81, when our capital market started a little bit showing some kind of boom. But after 1991, a lot of changes have taken place. The same changes could be witnessed in many countries. Because of this opening up of the financial markets, managing funds by individuals became a difficult task. Now, the complex products, financial products and services were introduced in the market, and it was difficult for people to understand them. Now, I think even the professionals, they were running to keep pace with these kinds of development. Now, because of this development, perhaps we need financial literacy. As a matter of fact, managing funds had assumed importance even in the early days. I think one of the speakers, if I remember, it was Sri Sakuraja, who was talking about Upanishads, Ramayana, etc. I think we can recollect that even the treasure of God was there, Kuber, as we call him, Kuber. So finance has been important even in the very, very ancient times. Now, when I am financially literate, I can perhaps manage my funds better than if I don't know anything about finance. Now, when people start taking informed decisions, it introduces stability in the financial market of the country. And if the financial markets are stable, if there is monetary stability, financial stability, obviously what we are talking about is the financial sustainability of a country. And financial sustainability is directly related to sustainable development. As I said that I don't know much about the sustainable development. I'm a student. I've been reading literature on sustainable development. I thought to pick up one simple definition of OECD, that it's the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Now, if you manage your funds well, perhaps you are even caring for your future generation. Now, sustainable development is a complex area. It's being talked about. Everyone talks about it, okay? But I think if you really would like to have sustainable development to make a change in the development process of a country or in the economic transformation, because most of the emerging countries, a lot of people are poor there. Now, if we are able to do that, I think financial literacy is leading to sustainable development. But any change requires a behavioral change. So it's a prerequisite that for the financial sustainability as well as the sustainable development, that the people change their behavior. They understand the importance of funds, for example. So in order to have sustainable financial action on the part of each one of us, there is need for financial literacy. Although, as we will see, that its conceptualization is sometimes considered evolving and even complex. Now, in the Indian context, well, some studies have been done, and a lot of studies have been done across various countries. And what has generally been found is that the financial literacy, even in the developed country, is at the low level. Now, the question which we may ask is, how do researchers conceptualize the meaning of financial literacy? How do we measure financial literacy? How do we operationalize it in practice? What are those socioeconomic factors which influence financial literacy? Now, all these questions need answer. If we are able to answer these questions in the context of our country, I think we shall be moving towards financial literacy. So let's look at the conceptualization of financial literacy. Now, there are various views. Of course, we must appreciate from the very beginning that financial literacy could connote many things. There are two words, financial and literacy. The way you look at these two terms, you can conceptualize financial literacy. For example, some people think that we try for literacy, total literacy in the country, general literacy as we call it. Is financial literacy a part of general literacy? My answer is yes or no. But if you mix it with general literacy, then the importance of understanding financial literacy could get reduced. Now, what does it include, for example? That is the question which some researchers have asked. Is it knowledge? If there is enough, for example, I know finance. Many of my students know finance. Are we financially literate? Now, therefore, some people said that, look, can I put my knowledge into practice, which is true for any discipline, marketing, operation management, supply chain management. I may have knowledge, I may have understanding, but can I put it in practice? Therefore, is financial literacy financial application? Now, there are several ways in which people have conceptualized. I have, for example, picked up two. I will read one of them here. The ability to make informed judgments and to take effective decisions regarding the use and management of money is financial literacy. The question is it operationally feasible what we are saying? When we say informed judgment, effective decision making, what leads to that kind of a thing? Now, therefore, financial literacy entails making financial decisions in ones. This is a very simple way of putting it that, look, can I make decisions in my own best possible interest? Now, if yes, perhaps I'm financially literate. How do I look at this? Of course, I have done this research along with one of my student, professor, of course, now associate professor. Now, I thought that I could derive from Bloom's taxonomy when he talks about learning or knowledge. Now, he said that there are three levels. One is at the cognitive level, which we call in common parlance as knowledge. Second is the psychomotor. Of course, he was talking about engineering and science, and therefore, these are the skills which you need to have. And then the third one was affective, which we say attitudes or behavior. Having knowledge, having even the ability of application does not lead to application. You have to have that motivation, that kind of an attitude, that behavior. Now, if I expand that again, then it is financial literacy is remembering understanding. So for example, in finance, I have been taught about discounting. I have been taught about inflation. Now, can I recollect it when it's needed? So you have passed your examinations, you have got your degrees, but then there is action now. At some stage, some action is needed. Do you remember it? Can you recollect it? Do you understand how to use it? So it's a remembering and understanding of what you have learned in finance. It's the skill of application and analysis, all right? Now, because you have to interpret data in financial decision making, even the simple decision, I want to borrow from the bank. I want to buy a house and I have to borrow from the bank, okay? Mr. Sri, his name, I forget, Sakuraja, he was mentioning about one of the regional managers, he's a student. Now, can I apply, let's say as an individual, I go to the bank and they say that, look, it's the equated monthly installment which you have to pay. Of course, we are charging interest at a low rate of 9%. Is that 9% really 9 or is it 12%? Now, can I therefore analyze that information which is provided to me? So I'm talking about even the simple decisions, all right? And therefore, you have to show an appropriate behavior to apply. Now, so what does, in operational terms, what does it mean for us? Now, we have divided that into, let's say that financial literacy basically is your understanding and learning of finance, which is called financial knowledge, and then applying it, showing proper behavior. So your financial application means what? That there are financial products and services, you are able to use them and with an appropriate behavior towards it, all right? Now, what should be the methods of, because we are saying that in order to do this, in order to really improve the financial literacy in a country, we need to measure it. We have to first find out, are our people financially literate or not? So what are those methods which can be used for that purpose? Now, how people have done it. So that is why to know the level, we need to measure it. Now, in the past, therefore, the easiest method, which is even tried, and we also tried that, is the questionnaire-based information gathering. We need to gather information from the individuals. I think for the students sitting in this conference who are doing research, it is what we call is that, what is my research design, for example? Now, what shall I do? Is it qualitative, quantitative? Is it questionnaire-based? Is it the data which is available? Nowadays, it's very easy to do finance research based on available data. But then I think the best research could be that when you gather information yourself firsthand, then you will understand what you're talking about. Now, there have been differences in the number of the questions which people have put together this information. There have been studies where just 2 questions were asked, sometimes 3 questions, yes and no questions. They can be quite biased. So you have to really combine them. Anyway, whatever way people have done it, what most of the studies have found out is that there is low level of financial literacy, even in advanced countries. So what do we talk about the developing? So we need to find out about our countries. The next question was that socio-economic factors which influence. Now, gender, income, education, age, marital status, now the discipline of study, parental influence, friends influence, all these are important factors. And that is what researchers found out. Now, I'll give you some example. I will just go ahead a little faster. Gender, for example, generally what has been found is that men have higher level of financial literacy. Anyway, there were some studies which contradicted it, of course, but there are few. Income, again, high income, it's positively related. Obviously, of course, sometimes we may say education. Now, there may be exception. In India, there have been exceptions. Of course, you may know a little bit about India that in south of India, we have Chetiyas. In let's say, west of India, we have Gujaratis. In north of India, we have what we call Marwaris. And these people, they are not highly educated in terms of their degrees, but they have been managing their businesses in an excellent way and highly profitably. Now, those are exceptions. But generally what has been found is that if you have higher education, graduate and postgraduate, you are showing more financial knowledge. Age is a very interesting thing that now, for example, there is in the young people, there is low financial literacy. And the highest is among the middle. Even the elderly people, I may be an exception, of course, even in the elderly people, this is quite low when it comes to the application, of course. Unemployed and those who are low skilled, again, have, these are some of the obvious, even in Australia, they found this. So marital status, if you are married, you are better off as far as financial literacy. I think this is the influence of each other, the wife of the spouse on each other. Now, if you have studied business, economics, finance, you are better, slightly better perhaps. And if your parents have been, well, there may be exception, but most of the time that if the parents are good in financial knowledge and application, the children follow. Now the question is that what do we find in India, for example? And this may help you to even think in terms of, let's say, in Sri Lanka, that whether, well, some studies must have been done there as well. Now, what we need to understand is that how much is the financial literacy level in India? What are those socioeconomic factors? And therefore, in order to understand in any country, you have to gather information. You have to gather data, all right? And again, for my research students sitting here, now, again, it's a part of the research design. I will give you a general idea, of course. Now, then I have to choose. India is such a vast country, okay? 130 crores, as we call it. Now, that's a large number. And therefore, you have to be very selective. At the same time, it has to be representative, all right? So what we did is that we chose Delhi as the place because it's the most cosmopolitan. First, we thought how many? Now, you can't just cover everything. So we used what is available in statistics. Cochrane's formula, for example. And if I think that I will cover 50% of the population and then this will be my level of confidence, you must at least assume 95%. If I think that I will allow for a variability of 3%, not more, well, you will get some kind of sample size. So we got 1,067 and we restricted it to 1,000 kind of a thing. 250 questions where, of course, this was done through the evaluation and screening of experts and focus group. That's what I think you should do. Now, the question is, how shall we calculate the financial literacy? Of course, these were the factors which we looked at. These are the socioeconomic factors which we looked at. Now, after getting this data, we calculated the financial scores. Of course, there were 18 financial knowledge questions, 26 financial behavior, 8 financial product to choose from, and all these were given 1 mark each. We had certain criteria for that purpose. And finally, we reduced all marks out of 50. Now, what do you find the kind of literacy which India has. Now, let's say 90% here, and sorry, it has gone there. So if I use my pen just to highlight, this is 90, less than 1% people are in 90%. So if I take 70% as my cutoff point, that is what most of the studies do, that look, at least you should get 70% marks to pass. When I was a student in Delhi University, you would pass only if you had 50%. Before me, there were 33%. Things are changing. And so now I think we should make it 70%, perhaps even in the universities. So if I take this and if I add all of them, 30% people are really financially literate in my country. Now, we also, is there a relationship between financial knowledge and financial literacy? We created indices of financial knowledge and we found that there was positive relationship. Of course, our correlation was 0.33, but it was significant at 1%. That's what the researchers do it. Now, in order to understand influence of socioeconomic factors, I think the PhD students, and they must understand, they should be very good at statistics. And they should not blindly follow a particular method. They have to give a logic of choosing a method. So we have, for example, regression is one of the most popular and mostly misused method of research all over the world. Anyway, we thought that logic will be better. We wanted to find out what is the probability that an individual would be literate or not. And that is why, so we had our response variable would be therefore yes or no, 1 or 0, for example. All right, if you are financially literate, naturally we had to divide our data and we used median. So if you are above median, you are literate for us, otherwise not. Again, in research, you can discuss why this, why not that kind of a thing that you should be doing as a PhD student. Now we got our results. I won't show you these long, let's say, kind of tables, and they are there. But then what we found is that what are the effects on financial, separately we did that socioeconomic factor influencing financial knowledge, financial behavior, and financial products owned. We wanted to separate them out. I think mostly we found the relevant variables where men, retired people, were low, and then the men were better off, people above age of 55, but not more than certain age, were better in knowledge, etc., etc. Similar things were found in case of financial behavior and products health. Well, that's not of great interest to me. Again, this was a comparison done to you. But what I'm interested in talking is, once you gather this data, for example, now you just cannot say financially literate aggregate basis. There are two important components, which is the financial knowledge and financial application. I think what is of great importance is what is that combination? I may be so good in financial knowledge, but what is the use of this financial knowledge if I can't apply it, if I can't pass it on to those people who will apply it and who understand from me how to apply? Therefore, what we did is, from our data, we created financial literacy grid. And as we plotted the scores, what we found was, of course, I will show you that also very quickly, but here it's important. This slide is better than that slide because there you get lost in your research technicalities. I don't want to put that here. Now, we divided them, of course, on two axes. On our y-axis, we had knowledge, and on x-axis, we had application. Now, the people in high on both, we said that these are financially sophisticated people. Those who were, for example, high on one and low in another. For example, if you are high in knowledge and low in application, you are inactive. You are financially inactive. You have a lot of wisdom. What is the use of that wisdom, for example? You are high in application and low in knowledge. You are vulnerable. You can apply, but you may be committing blunders at times. And when you are both, you don't know much, you don't apply therefore much, you are most inactive financially. Actually, this entire data we divided into these 4 categories. Of course, it was technically done this way as well as by creating clusters. Now in statistics, you can create clusters. There is a very good book by 4 authors. Here is the first author. There are many more complicated books, but that's the simplest one which you can use, and then you can use SPSS. Of course, we have used Stata and SPSS, which most of you must be familiar with, the PhD students particularly, and the teachers who are doing research. Now, I will show you this table that these were the factors in these clusters. High financial knowledge and average to high financial application. Who are those people? Men, private service, business, age group 35 to 45, or 56 to 65. Above that, they are not. Graduates, postgraduates, married, all these factors were found out. I'm not so interested right now on that. You can look at that sometimes when this paper gets published. But then what do we gather out of this, for example? That is more important. So actually, what are our conclusions, for example? Our conclusions are very simple, that in the Indian context, there is low financial literacy, and low financial literacy we found out through statistical methods. We gathered data, 1,000 people, and then we created the scores, we created the indices for each one of them. And then, of course, we plotted also to find out the financial grade. We use logic. By the way, I must tell you that when you use a particular method, it has to be robust. Otherwise, good journals will not accept. So we said that, look, the method which is also competing method could be Probit, for example, or it could be probabilistic regression. And then we tried even that. Similar results were obtained. We divided our data into 2 parts. We created a what we call as hold on sample and another sample, and said that, does it work? Fortunately, it worked, which means we were quite confident about the results of this. So through this process, we found out low financial literacy. And then, of course, there was less than a perfect positive relationship between financial knowledge and financial application, but it was positive and statistically significant. We found several factors distinguishing financial knowledge, financial behavior, and financial products health. So the socio-economic factor, the demographic factors, they become quite important in these kinds of studies when you are looking at the behavior of the people. Now, and through our financial grid, by plotting the scores as well as by creating the clusters, we found 4 kinds of Indians, okay? The financially inactive, which will be true for most of the countries actually, of course, financially inactive, financially naive, financially vulnerable, and financially sophisticated. Now, that is fine that once your research has been done, what is the use of this research? What do you want to say? You have said, everybody said that financial literacy is low in most of the countries. You are adding and you're saying financial literacy is low even in India, for example. What is the way forward? And what are the deficiencies and needs of each group separately? So don't lump everything together. Simply don't say, in my country, 70% people need financial knowledge and application abilities. Don't say that, because the needs of these people are different. You can't make everybody MBA in finance. You should not. And therefore, if I am high school, for example, because we found that high school and even some graduates, they just didn't know anything about it. You are doing engineering, you are doing science, you are doing even commerce, and even the commerce students, I sometimes find them that they don't know the basics. You ask them about discounting and you ask them about inflation, for example. You say, what is internal rate of return? What do you mean by equated monthly installments, for example? How do you calculate them? Or how do you prepare a loan amortization schedule? And you will find some of them as dumb commerce and accounting students as well. That is a sorry state, of course, unfortunately. So we need to understand the deficiency of each group, and accordingly appropriate action should be taken. Now, for example, in our mind, what we thought is that if this is the kind of thing, now the financially sophisticated people, they are quite all right, but still very complex products are coming up in the market. For example, what I studied, of course, 40 years, 45 years ago, I studied 45 years ago. And what I studied was the descriptive finance. I never studied analytical finance. So as a teacher, you have to continuously learn. And particularly, finance is a subject which is changing every day technically. Others may be changing. Well, I don't say may because I read them also. Others are also changing, but then the technicalities which are involved in finance are much complex than what may be in some other, let's say, discipline of management. This statement can be disputed. I am a finance person, so perhaps I may be exaggerating. But then there would be target groups there. Now, I want to invest in USA, for example. They have derivative securities which are so complicated. So you may target that group and accordingly design financial education for them. Now, these are the people who are financially inactive. They have knowledge, but no application. So what do they need? They don't need knowledge so much. They need behavioral change. The training program have got to be, I think, to motivate them and let's make them to imprint on their mind that how important is this to use your knowledge for application purpose. Now, the financially vulnerable people are who are low at application and good at knowledge. Now, I think again, they require motivation. They require hand-holding. They require practice. There are, of course, investment bankers and they can hand-hold, but again, you have to have knowledge. Don't depend on them 100%. A mutual fund person is going to tell you that, look, this is a good issue in the market. They have their own interests. Of course, they are professionals. They will not cheat you, but then their judgment can go wrong depending on your risk-taking abilities. I think you should be able to argue. You should be able to at least ask good questions because they are vulnerable. And they are vulnerable because they may depend on the commercial advertisements, which of course, at least half of them are there to cheat you. Financially naive are good in application. As I said, these Marwaris, these Gujaratis. You see, I was in Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management, a great institute in India, of course, worldwide, fortunately. And now I was on the board of several companies. One of the companies, that company just started and it issued IPO. And then there was, after a year, there was annual meeting of the shareholders. And what we found sitting there were people, these big turbans on their heads. These were the milkmen and all those kinds of Gujaratis, the traditional Gujaratis. And they were there, they had invested in this company. To my surprise, some of them were asking very, very sophisticated questions. But still, a large number could be naive in applying. So now you have to target. So that's why we are saying is that, look, create the groups. Within each, you can create again groups. You see, if you are really designing training for them. Academic institutions, in addition to producing MCOMs, BCOMs, MBAs, MBA finance, there's that. I think they should have a separate financial service center, perhaps, where they are providing services to the community. I couldn't do that in my institute in IIM Ahmedabad. We were doing a little bit here and there, but not much. And now they are doing it in a big way. My college where I studied, Sri Ram College of Commerce of Delhi University, they have been doing it in a big way now. So you can get involved in that. Now, therefore, what is important? The most important, in my opinion, is that it needs a behavioral change on the part of all groups. Can we show to the people, particularly those who are in naive and those who are low in application, or those who are not acting, that look, what are the costs of your undesirable financial behavior? Your inactivity, if you do not, then what are the costs to you, to the society? And if you are making wrong decisions, if scams are taking place in your country, financial scam, which of course India witnesses, unfortunately, now look, that brings instability, financial instability, and you can't talk about, therefore, sustainable development in your country. Therefore, we have to develop an emotional contact with the target audience. Actually, it's not simply talking technical things in simple way. I can teach in a very simple way. For example, difficult finance concepts, even without using mathematics at all. Of course, I use it. I use it in a descriptive language many times, and then write the formula on the board. Now, so you have to develop that emotional contact. Highlight the short and long-term benefits, incentives, and even the disasters involved when you don't act, when you don't have knowledge. So targeting people most ready for action must be found out, all right? So once you have done the research, you must come, of course, what you could have done, you could have asked those, you can go back to some of those participants of your survey and ask them that, what do you want from us? Or you can conduct a focus group and you say that, look, present to the focus group. We didn't do that. We will be doing that. And present to the focus group. This is what we found. What do you suggest? How should we move ahead? What should we do, for example? Now, of course, I thought that so that you don't feel I know nothing about sustainable development, so I thought, let me relate a little bit. Well, I was reading this literature. I read it much earlier than this conference, of course. Now, they have what we call sustainable development goals, all right? There are many of them, I think 13 or 19, something like that. I picked up 3: end poverty, reduce inequality, good health. I thought they are all related to financial health of the country's people. Now, if you have financial literacy, if you have financial stability in the country, I think you shall be able to meet these. Ending poverty is a difficult task. Simply financially literate people will not help, but then look, at least they will understand where they are. Of course, in India, we have uneducated people. General literacy is also very low sometimes. Of course, it's a small percentage now as compared to when we got our independence in 1947, but still it's there. So we have to do something different for them. It's not just the financial literacy. But what the government has been doing over the years after reforms, Manmohan Singh, and then many others, and then now this particular current government, I think they are also doing something. They're adding to what was done earlier. And so bank accounts, a lot of people have bank accounts, but still balances are zero in many of them. But at least you are making your population bankable, all right? Reduce inequality. If I understand the importance of finance, funds management, earnings, I think perhaps it will get reduced. And for financial good health, you need financial health. See? Now, financial literacy does what? What does it do? It gives control in your hands of your finances. So even if you are depending on the relationship managers of banks, investment companies, please have control of your money. Otherwise, you can lose it. Financial literacy grant that one to you. It empowers you when you are talking with your counselors because you are good but not so good. You are at least saying, appreciating, and you are saying, I can do it, okay? If you are financially literate. Avoid that. I looked at the debt situation of my country as a percentage of, let's say, that the gross national product or the disposable income. Now it's increasing. Bankruptcies are taking place. Therefore, again, people are becoming bankrupt. If to deposit your money, you need to know which bank, for example, all right? So it will help you to avoid bad debt. Now, it is in your best interest, whatever is being done. Therefore, to conclude that financial sustainability and stability leading towards sustainable economic development is okay, but then financial literacy is also needed for that. Thank you very much for your patience. Thanks to the organizers once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for your excellent keynote speech on financial literacy, a tool for financial sustainability. You have explained not only the importance of financial literacy, but also you have explained very well how it linked with sustainability very well in an understandable manner. I hope every one of us have enjoyed your session and got knowledge from it. And more than that, we honor your immense concentration towards our ICCM conference and for the knowledge that you have shared with us today. Thank you very much, sir. And the important notice to everyone, the panel discussion will be followed by the UGC chairman address.